Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Chasing the Bread podcast. I'm all over the place right now. I'm literally in a content studio and I'm just trying to find the right outfits. However, let's get into it. Guys, this episode is going to be all about my addiction. Yes, my addiction with alcohol, okay, and my very, very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And yeah, I have been quite hesitant to share this with you guys, but I think it's so important because it was such a big part of my life, of my early years, of my teenage years, and I feel like it impacted me severely. Make sure you subscribe down below, as I would love for you to keep up with all of my content, and I know that it's going to only benefit you and help progress you. How I broke up with alcohol, okay? And first of all, I'm going to begin with getting into how unhealthy it was for me in the beginning, and how it all began. So growing up, I didn't have the most easiest of childhoods. I'm not even going to get into my childhood too much because there is so much to unpack when it comes down to my childhood, and I feel like I kind of want to let you guys in to that a little later down the line, just because it's, you know, it's things that are very close to my heart, and I don't like to share things that are very close to my heart with the public until I feel safe. And at this current time, I don't feel very safe to go in as much, but I'm going to touch on it. As a child, I struggled quite a lot. I clashed a lot with my mum, a lot with my stepdad. And yeah, I really just all the time felt like I wanted to escape, and I couldn't escape my mum. I couldn't escape that house that I was in. So the day came when I decided to have my first drink. And my first drink, I should have known from that point that there was something majorly wrong and I should not have continued. So my first boyfriend must have really upset me on a particular day, and I remember I ended up going to the cupboard at my mom's house and I ended up downing a straight glass of rum, of my Jamaican Caribbean dad's rum. I think I did at the same time want attention, because my reaction, I let them know that I had the alcohol, and I was like, I remember I was intentionally falling all over the place and stuff, like, yeah. So anyway, mom put me to bed. That was the first sign, okay? So I should have realised from that point, gosh, I've turned to something because I've been in a very negative mindset, in a bad place, and that is when I chose to turn to it for the very first time, and I should have noticed right then. However, I didn't. So ever since then, I basically ended up at loggerheads with my parents, with my mother and with my stepfather for years. So from the ages of about 14, that's when it all began. I began to basically say, no, I am not going to live in this household being subjected to certain things, or receiving certain mistreatment, because I cannot stand it. I do not want to live anymore. So every single day I would literally just pray to die. I would literally just cry on my bed and just pray to die. I wouldn't say pray, because at that time I didn't even know God, and that's another video, guys, for me to get into how my relationship has expanded, is that the word I'm looking for? Has expanded and has transpired, has transpired throughout time with God. However, that's for another video. However, yeah, my relationship with alcohol, let's get back on track. So my mom ended up putting me into care. Like, she voluntarily put me into care at 14, when I was 14 years old. And that's kind of when everything went downhill, even further downhill, because things were already not great. Then my mom put me into the semi-independent unit, and she was thinking, great, this girl's going to get fostered. Like, she's literally going to go away for like a few months, and we're going to get help with the family, and we're going to be able to strategize. However, what happened was, it was just a very slippery slope, and I ended up getting into a lot of bad behaviors. So I ended up literally drinking in any circumstance. I feel like I began when I was homeless. I feel like that point of being homeless and wanting to escape and not wanting to think, because I was quite young. I was only 14 when I was experiencing homelessness. So it was extremely hard for me. And I just didn't want to think during the day. Whilst the sun was out and everybody had their homes to go back to and their nice beds, I did not have that. So it was very difficult for me. So I feel like, yeah, having weed and having alcohol really did help take that stress off me at that time, and helped me to not, to not ruminate on those particular thoughts and emotions and realities that I was experiencing at that time. However, it very quickly got out of control. I ended up meeting a guy who was a lot older than me when I was 16, and he introduced me to alcohol even further. He lived like a very fast life, and it was something that I was very much not used to. So he definitely heightened that for me. However, he did not, get me into drinking, but he definitely helped strengthen my relationship with alcohol. He didn't do anything to help sever that relationship. He definitely helped strengthen that. He always provided me with alcohol, and I was only 16 years old at this time. That's how I got into alcohol. It ended up getting to a point where every single person around me, every single person who genuinely loved me was just like, Courtney, this needs to stop. Like, this alcohol thing cannot continue. It is destroying you. I would put myself in very, very dangerous predicaments. I would have absolutely terrible hangovers, and I just couldn't live like that anymore. I just couldn't live like that. So the day did come when I did stop, okay? But let me just continue. I just couldn't bear to even look at myself certain days, because it wasn't even myself that was acting in these ways. It was the drink. It was, and I know it sounds cliche saying that, but you are not yourself when you drink. You are not yourself at all. When you are drunk, it's literally like a spirit comes upon you. And people would always say this to me. They would always say, Courtney, it's like a spirit literally comes upon you every time you have a drink. It's like you just turn into a completely different person. Yeah, it just wasn't good at all. And it wasn't so much me ever hurting others. I would never hurt others, but I would put myself in very, very stupid situations. Very, very dangerous situations. I'll just try and get myself obliterated. And that just wasn't the way to go, okay? I've never self-harmed, just to let you know. These were literally actions that were caused through the drink. And one thing that really made me stop was people taking the absolute mickey out of me. It was people having absolutely no respect for me and thinking that they could constantly disrespect me, look down on me, and literally spit on me, take away all of my dignity, all of my rights, simply because I drank and I had enough. Like, I genuinely had enough. And I say this with passion and quite a bit of anger, because the amount of people who thought that they had the right to abuse me when I was in those states, and there were many situations where I wasn't even in those states, but whilst I was in those states, is absolutely disgusting. And every single person who has wronged me, may the Lord deal with you. And I say this with care. Like, may he teach you the wrongs in what you've done, and may you never, ever do that to another person ever again. I wouldn't wish any of those things on my worst enemy. Literally, like, taking advantage of a drunk person is literally taking advantage of a corpse. And when I started to see it like that, I started to think, no, what has actually been done to me has been absolutely disgusting. So these are a few things as to why I stopped, including the hangovers. My hangovers were the worst. They are terrible. They are absolutely excruciating. Like, it's like calm downs. It's like I was doing drugs. Like, I don't even know, like A-class drugs. I wouldn't know because I've never done A-class drugs. However, it was literally like I had done crazy drugs. And I knew that something wasn't right. I would literally be puking up all day, every day I would drink. And it was just so not be worth it. Literally, it would not be worth it at all. Let's talk about my turning point, guys. So it took me, I started drinking at the age of 15, and it took me, how many years? I think it took me about 10 years. Yep, so 15 I started drinking, and then I stopped drinking in 2023 when I was, I think 23, 24. Yeah, because I'm going to be 28 this year. So I stopped drinking when I was about, I think I was 24 or 25. I came to the realization that nobody was coming to save me. I came to the realization that everybody was going to keep disrespecting me, that I was going to have no kind of security or stability or sense of trust within myself. And I had to stop. I had to call it a day because I was tired of it. I was tired of people using that's one thing against me. Always saying, oh, Courtney, you know, she was drunk, or, you know, Courtney's a drunkard, or Courtney's addicted to alcohol, or Courtney, you know, whatever people wanted to say about me, I had enough of it. And I had enough of having to own it because it was the truth. It was the truth. It was the truth. I depended on alcohol like there was no tomorrow. Whether I was happy, whether I was sad, whether I was overjoyed, okay, I would have a Magnum in my hand. I would have some kind of enhancer to enhance my brain because I hated how my brain was. I hated how my mind worked. So I had to take it upon myself and do that. And so the day came. This was January 18th, 2023. And that was my last drink. Well, it wasn't actually my last drink, but I had a break from alcohol for a year and a half. So from 2023 January to mid 2024, I had absolutely no alcohol, not a single sip, guys, not a single sip. And it was the most empowering move that I had ever made. The most empowering move. Like, when I say that got me in check with myself so much, that made me really come, like, it made me realize who I was. Without it made me realize I could produce my own happiness, that I could get all my happiness from the Lord, that I did not need to seek this alcohol anymore. And I didn't need it to enjoy myself. I didn't need it to feel happiness. I had never known happiness before alcohol, okay? So my whole teenage life was spent sad, and when I left, went straight into alcohol, straight into weed. So I've never really been able to create my own happiness, or allow God to even create my own happiness as an adult, because I've always been subjecting my mind to not being of a sober mind. So God has been unable to even show me the reality of life because it's always been so clouded. So the day came when I said no more. My life is in shambles. My life is in absolutely shambles. I can't do anything, okay? Constantly, every single time I want to do something, I drink, and then it messes up everything, and then I have to wait a few weeks to lose that feeling of the drunkenness, and then and all of the, you know, the depletion of my spirit and the depletion of my physical ability, and even of the clarity of my brain. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. I genuinely can't do this anymore. I'm failing in life. I'm absolutely failing. I can't hold down anything. And at the same time, I'm just disappointing myself every single day. You know, I don't even know how I'm acting. I can't even control myself in these circumstances. I must stop. So the day came, I believe something happened, and let's not get into that one too tough. However, a crazy thing happened, and then the next morning I said, you know what, I'm going to an AA meeting. I took myself to an AA meeting, and it was in the woods. It was actually in the woods, funnily enough, hippie business. However, it was such a great experience. I had been to 2 previous AA meetings before, but this one was the one that changed my life. And from that meeting, guys, like, let me tell you, I recommend AA meetings 100%. They make you realize that you are not the only person to start struggling with an alcohol addiction, with an addiction. Like, there are people from 16 years old all the way to nearly 100 years old. Like, alcoholism does not discriminate, okay? And I don't want anybody to feel like, you know, anybody would think that you're too good to take on such an addiction. It's so easy to get into that loop. It's so easy to get into alcohol dependency. And I want to not normalize alcohol dependency, but I want to normalize how easy it is to get into it and how easy it is to stay there. And how hard it is to, you know, remove ourselves from such addictions without the correct support, without the correct support system, without God. Because let me tell you, I would not have been able to do this without God. I would not have been able to do this. My whole life has changed. I've even helped my family members stop drinking. You know, I was the first person everybody thought I would never be the one to encourage the rest of my family to stop drinking. However, I ignited that change, and I couldn't be more happy about that. I couldn't be more thankful that the Lord trusted me with such an assignment. And I'm also thankful that I answered, because if I didn't answer, I don't know where I would be or where the rest of my family members would be. One thing that definitely helped me was always remembering to take every single thought captive, okay? God always reminds us to take every single thought captive. For we can have thoughts from the Holy Spirit, or we can have thoughts from, you know, the devil, demonic spirits. We can have thoughts from our own instinct, from our own spirit. So we must be able to discern these things, okay? So we must take every single thought captive, every single one. We must not, you know, ruminate on thoughts. We must take it captive, discern it, and then move on from it, okay? So I was learning not to ruminate on thoughts and to also take every thought captive at the same time, in the same breath. And it helped me so much, because I was realizing every time I was getting triggered, every single time I was getting triggered, I was deciding, right, this is it. This is what was causing me to drink. This is who was causing me to pick that up. Who was causing me to go to the off license. And it started all connecting. It all started connecting to me. And then I was able to really just start resisting those triggers. And it really helped me. So yeah, just really ensuring that I didn't beat myself up, that I, you know, was just very, very enlightened in terms of what my brain was telling me, or what it was trying to tell me. Because as we know, habits are built, habits are formed, and I knew that I was habitually constrained to this substance. So I needed to habitually remove myself from it, habitually. It needed to be something that I needed to make a pattern out of. And without making a pattern out of it, without doing it for a sustained amount of time, that I would not have seen any kind of progress, that I would not have been able to maintain that change. another verse that really helped me was, do not be conformed by the world, but by the renewing of your mind. And always remembering that I needed to just renew my mind. It was unhealthy. It was craving and seeking things that were not good for it, because those cravings would, be sufficient enough for a very, very minimal amount of time, but they would never be long term. So I knew that I needed to rewire my brain. I needed to really recollaborate how the wiring of my brain was. And, throughout the years of my childhood and everything, and I had to realize, I had to force myself. I literally had to force myself every single day for a month. But let me tell you, after that month went by, I started feeling very much on top of the world. I started feeling like anything was possible. As God says, we could do anything through Christ who strengthens us. And I just always remembered that. And I'll sit there around people and I'll see everybody else drinking. And, it would be great to just be that one person who always used to face repercussions for my actions during drinking. It was just really, really nice to be that one who wasn't, and who was encouraging people to even slow down on the drink, just through my actions, not through me saying anything, because I still remained very, very humble throughout the time that I did remain completely sober without a drop of alcohol, and I abstained. However, yeah, it was a very, very lovely experience. And another huge thing as well that really helped me was sharing my journey with people, not being afraid. So many people would say to me, why are you doing this, Courtney? You don't need to tell the world about this, like, you don't need to tell the world that you was addicted to alcohol. And it's like, okay, would you do this? Because you wouldn't do this, would you? It's clearly not something that I'm proud of. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's clearly not something that is easy for me to do. This is something that is frowned upon within society. Addiction, alcohol addiction, okay? It's seen as something, that people would say is nitty behavior. So me coming up here, owning it, is actually quite amazing, actually. So no, I didn't stop, and it helped so many people, guys. When I say it helped so many people, like, I helped ignite so many people's sobriety, and it makes me so very happy because of my courage, because of my resilience, because of, my authenticity and my ability to be transparent with people, I was able to be part of improving these people's lives. All glory to God. God is using me as a vessel to work through these people. However, it's a great feeling, and I must say that empowered me so much more to continue the journey. So I would definitely advise sharing your journey with people and being commended as you deserve, because you do deserve to be commended. You do. Quitting an addiction is one of the most hardest things you can do. Okay, people end up going until the day they die being addicted to a substance and missing out on the entirety of their lives. Every single prospect, every single opportunity that God had set for them, every single opportunity that God was waiting for them at that table to have a conversation with them, gone. All because of addiction, because of the fake reality, because of the false perception that we are given when we take these drug enhancing products. I will definitely be speaking about this more, but it was such an eye-opening and healing conversation with you, because I've just been very, very caught up in life recently, and I haven't really had the time to even journal or speak, for such a long amount of time to anybody about myself. And, doing this has been great. It's actually been so great. And I just want to say as well, peace is priceless. The things that I've gained from being sober, the top thing would be peace. Peace, clarity. I got so much of my dignity back, so much more self-respect back. I've got such a long way to go, and I'm definitely going to get into that with you guys. However, yeah, I've gained so much more. I've gained so much, like, in comparison, guys. Like, I never used to stick to anything. I was unable to. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to the studio and record music. I couldn't, sit there and do my studying for my degree. I couldn't do anything. And then boom, as soon as I did, I started passing my years at university. I started being close with my family again. I started, really pursuing with my music more. I started, putting myself out there. I had a lot more confidence in myself, a lot more trust in myself and who I was, in my identity. Because when I was drinking, I didn't really have an identity. The devil took me wherever he wanted to take me, and I just went because I let my emotions drive me. Now I let God drive me. Okay, I don't let the things of the world drive me anymore. Okay, it is God who is in control, and I put all of my wants, all of my desires into his hands, and I trust that he will answer. I trust that he will, you know, answer my desires in accordance to his will. And I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that. I don't need to be drunk out of my face to have a good time, because that's all I knew, because that's all I literally knew. And if you were somebody who, you know, did know a sober life before, get back to that sober life, because it was beautiful and it was so much more worth living than the life you're living now. I can guarantee you that. But yeah, guys, what a lovely, lovely episode. Episode 2. What a very down to earth, raw episode 2 to give. Second episode to give. I think it's been great, but I would like to bring you guys on board again and have another conversation with you guys like this. And yeah, you guys just have an amazing, amazing day. Please make sure you subscribe down below. And yeah, it was great, guys. Don't be ashamed of who you are, of where you've been. The moment you own it is the moment it no longer owns you. Okay? And alcohol doesn't own me anymore. And nothing that anybody says about me can own me, because I owned it. I own it. I own who I am. And I think that we should all start doing that too, because I feel like we'll have a much more beautiful world if we do so. And everybody will grow at a lot more faster rate, because they would be in denial less. But anyway, God bless you all. May the Lord bless you and your families always. Amen.